Greetings. Thanks everyone for joining us today for this edition of the InfoReady Peer Spotlight webinar. So today we'll be learning how the Division of Physical and Biological Sciences at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and I will for the rest of the time call them UC Santa Cruz, how they use InfoReady to centralize, standardize, and ensure compliance for their teaching and grad assistant programs. And so Patti Schell, who's the department manager of special assignments, and Jianna Dehoyos, who's a senior academic personnel analyst, are going to share their process and best practices. They're going to be presenting slides and showing a live look at their InfoReady site. So you'll see how the sausage is made. It's not just going to be a presentation on slides in that survey. And then a little bit about InfoReady. So InfoReady is a centralized platform for you to manage your selection and approval processes. So the basic concepts here are it's a centralized place to collect forms and applications and run it through a review and approval workflow. There's way more that you can do than just that, but those core concepts are something that happens all over a university's campus. And so you can not only collect and review, but you can track and assign follow-up reports and manage all the notifications and lots of stuff. Patti and Jianna are going to explain how they do some of that today. And the core basic concepts of InfoReady combined with a flexible platform allow people to use InfoReady in a wide variety of range of use cases all over campus. And you can see some examples here. The list is actually much longer than this, but we didn't want to have multiple pages of use cases with tiny letters that you could barely read. But here are some examples. We'll include this in the post-webinar email that has the recording. Now, with that housekeeping out of the way, please allow me to introduce our panelist. So Patti Schell, known as Patti, has been a dedicated member of the UC Santa Cruz Sciences Division since 2008. She first served as department manager for astronomy and astrophysics, and later for chemistry and biochemistry. After retiring in 2019, she returned as a rehired retiree, lending her expertise to support multiple departments during vacancies and special projects. In August 2023, she was appointed the division's inaugural department manager for special projects. In this role, she backfills department manager positions during vacancies, ensuring continuity and stability across departments. She also trains, mentors, and onboards all newly hired department managers, strengthening administrative practices and supporting long-term success throughout the division. Welcome, Patti. And then we have Jianna Dehoyos is a senior academic personnel analyst and has been with the science division at UC Santa Cruz since 2019. She assists faculty and departments in all stages of the hiring process for students, postdoctoral scholars, researchers, and lecturers. So that's a little bit about Jianna. Both of you started the same year. I guess, Jianna, you started the same year Patti rejoined.
Yeah.
So you've been on this journey together for a little bit.
Oh, yes.
We have.
We are partners in crime, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like it's been a success. Now I'm going to turn it over to you to share that with the audience.
Sure. Hello, everybody. So we are going to be talking about how we transformed our graduate student employment processes by implementing InfoReady. And we'll start with what our challenge was. Like many universities, UC Santa Cruz has faced challenges with administrative complexity. Within the Division of Physical and Biological Sciences, one of our biggest pain points has been managing more than 500 graduate student appointments every quarter. On top of that, both groups, our teaching assistants and our graduate student researchers, are represented by separate unions, each governed by complex bargaining agreements. Every appointment must comply with detailed labor provisions, covering workload limits, pay rates, appointment durations, and benefits eligibility. The current appointment letter, as mandated by our campus academic personnel office, is 6 pages long. It includes multiple required attachments. TA appointments are managed by the graduate advisor staff within each of our 9 departments. They handle the full range of the appointments. Before we had InfoReady, they did mail merges for every single appointment letter, did individual emails out to each student, and then had to manually track acceptance responses in spreadsheets. Meanwhile, on the other side, in our academic HR, in our division, they repeated the same process for graduate student researcher appointments. And adding yet another layer of complexity to this was there's funding approvals tied to each individual faculty research grants that have to be recorded. So what we needed was a centralized automated solution, one that would let us enter data once and automatically generate letters and emails. We wanted templates for both TAs and GSRs that were easy to update, flexible for different departments, and tracked our acceptances in one location. Our goal was a standardized process, consistent, efficient, and resilient to staff turnover. We needed a system that made the process smoother, not just faster. Why InfoReady? InfoReady was the perfect fit. It was already in use by the Office of Researcher on our campus, so there was an existing foundation. And we chose it because it's flexible enough to handle different workflow types. It offers transparent reporting for leadership, and it allows us to build a workflow that matched exactly how we operate. The results have been remarkable. We've saved about 80 staff hours per quarter just on TA appointments, and even more on the other side when you include the GSR appointments. Turnaround time has improved, and we now have a clear audit trail for every appointment. One powerful feature is the ability to have automated triggers that generate call-out boxes when something falls outside of policy. For example, when an appointment percentage exceeds the allowable limit, the system immediately flags the exception, gives you information about why it was flagged, requires justification, or a way to upload supporting documentation. So to really show what this process looks like in practice, we have 2 workflow slides. This is the TA appointment workflow slide on the left. It shows you who was responsible and what the steps were pre-InfoReady. On the right, in red, it shows how that process is now handled within InfoReady. So that's the big picture. And I'm going to hand it over to Jianna now because she's going to do a demo on our TA appointment workflow.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so this is our TA appointment request form. So when a graduate advisor logs in, so I'm in the role of a graduate advisor, a couple things are pre-filled, so like their name and their email addresses. And then I started a draft for a request. So I selected astronomy as my department, and the department field is very important because we have some conditional fields down below that are all based on the department. And then for the position title, we have a few. And as Patti was kind of mentioning, we have those like exception cases, like exception policy cases. So we were able to build in approval, like document upload fields for additional approvals that are needed before departments can offer like an undergrad or a course assistant, which is a non-student TA, their appointment. And that's really helpful so that we know that the approvals were gotten before the appointment was actually offered. In this case, I'm just going to go with the TA. I filled in a student name and their degree program. And then this is one of those conditional fields that, like I mentioned, is based off the department. So since I selected astronomy, I'm only going to see the astronomy courses. So I'm not going to see any chemistry or like math courses. I'm just going to pick something. I'm going to pick a date and time. And then we also have it built in. I'm going to scroll down a little bit where, when a grad advisor is entering this information, say they have everything, but they're just missing the course location, they could, we have a TBD option, so they can fill that in as a placeholder, and then they can always let the grad or the student know where the actual course location is once they have that sorted out. And then we also have an other option. So like if for some reason the correct option isn't in this list, they select other, and then they can just manually type in where the course number is or the actual location. And then I'm going to select an instructor. The department and division, again, these are all based off of that original department field. So those are automatically pre-filled. But if for some reason, say Alyssa isn't the department contact for the quarter, they also have the rest of the graduate advisors in the list in case someone's covering for one another or other if they need to type it in. And then in terms of our salary information, so our TAs, their salary is based off their experience. So as they get more experience, their salary level goes up. And so in each department, they have a salary point reference spreadsheet. And so that would be a link that's clickable right here. And so the list has the students' names and their salary points. So it's an easy reference for the graduate advisors while they're filling out the form. So they would go look up the salary point and then select it. And then once they select the salary point, then it's the annual, the monthly, and the quarterly rate are all filled in based off of the percent time. And so 50% is like the most common TA percentage for our TAs, but we also have some of the other common TA percentages. And then like Patti was mentioning as well, another exception to the policy, if they're over 50% time, that requires some additional approval. So again, we have another approval upload field. Another nice thing about InfoReady is that some students require additional language and some don't. So we're able to have like a simple yes or no question for our graduate advisors for when the language should be included in the appointment letter or not. So that's something that was really nice to build in to the form. And then lastly, the last few fields are something that aren't actually in the TA appointment letter, but they're actually in our payroll report, which the graduate advisors download and give to my team, the academic HR team, for payroll processing. So it's super nice that they're kind of able just to enter everything into the form, download the report, and then give it to us. They don't have to like download the report and then manually enter more information later. We're just collecting it all up front. So I'm going to just enter some things here. This is just one for like if a student's not in the astronomy department, they can let us know so that we know that we're hiring the correct person. And then this is just like a comment field if they need to tell us anything. And it even says, you know, the TA will not see these comments. And then I'm going to send this to myself so that we can see an example of the appointment letter. I'm going to go next. And then the last thing is our description of duties. So all TA appointments require a description of duties. And it's kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's just like a document that outlines their duties for the quarter. You know, if they have to attend lecture or grade papers, things like that. And so there's a couple options of how our graduate advisors can handle this. They can upload the DoD now, and it's included in the appointment letter, or they can email it directly to the student outside of InfoReady. Since we have many departments in our division, just some were handling it different than others. So InfoReady was kind of flexible in like how they were able to send the form to the student. And then we also do have a third option listed here where it's like if the department has all the appointment letters done, but they're just waiting on the DoD, they can just click the button and then save it as a draft and come back to it later. I just upload a little sample document and now I'm going to submit. So now the graduate advisor has finished the appointment letter. So now I'm like in the role of the student. I received the email that I have an appointment offer. I'm going to go to my assignments and here's the appointment. So we have some instructions for the student of like how they can see and download the appointment letter. So they just have to click show request details and The letter includes basically all the information that the graduate advisor entered on the form, plus, like Patti was mentioning, all the required language that the union requires us to give to the students. So at the beginning, just kind of like a little intro. And then we have, this is all the information that I just entered, right? Like the course and the location, the instructor, the salary information. And then down below, this is all kind of like the terms and conditions of the appointment. This is all the required language that we have to give to the student. And then if they go to the documents tab, this is where all those documents live. So the description of duties, this is the term and conditions you just saw in a PDF format. And then this is a required document that we have to give them, a position description. And then this is just a little info sheet about the leave options that they have as a TA. So they can view all that. And then if they need to download a copy for like if they need to show proof of employment, they can just click this little PDF button to download that. So they scroll down, they acknowledge that they've read the assignment information, they've read the terms and conditions, and then they can accept the appointment. And they submit. So then now I'm back into the role as a graduate advisor, and I'm going to refresh my little data grid here. And so this is the data grid, so they can see all the requests that the graduate advisors have submitted and what the students have accepted or not. And so we have a couple of custom grid views. So this is our first one. That's like an accept or decline report. So it's like super simple. Student name, their acceptance or declining, and then the department. Since each department is looking at their request individually, they don't need to see, all the other departments. So they can easily filter just for theirs. And then kind of same idea with our payroll report. They can filter by the department. So, if I'm astronomy, I can just see all the astronomy. I don't see the other departments. And then this has all of the information that my team needs to actually process the payroll. So they just download the grid and they paste it into a Google Sheet that we work off of to actually enter it into our payroll system. So now that you've seen the TA demo, I'm going to jump into our graduate student researcher workflow. Okay. Okay, perfect. So this is our graduate student researchers or GSRs pre versus post InfoReady workflow. So basically our GSR process requires the same end result with needing to generate an appointment letter for the student, but we have some additional steps between like submitting the form and then generating the letter. Before I get into all that, just some general knowledge. So there are 4 of us on the academic HR team that processes all GSR appointments for our division. As Patti had on like a previous slide, we have about 265 GSR appointments each quarter. So it's a large amount of work kind of split up between the 4 of us. So for our pre-InfoReady workflow, first step, we emailed our departments to ask them to reach out to their faculty to start submitting their GSR requests via Google form. The Google form collected all the information that my office needs to process the GSR appointments, like the student name, their research duties, and the funding information. And when a faculty submits the GSR request, the request is fed into a Google Sheet, and then an email confirmation is sent to the faculty, the accountant, the faculty designated on the form, and the academic HR team. So now we're on the 3rd row. And academic HR would respond to that email to request funding approval from the accountant. We are required to get funding approval for the appointment before we're able to send out the student's appointment letter, because we don't want to offer an appointment that we didn't have any funding for. And then in addition, we also have a deadline from the GSR's union that we need to send out the letter 30 days prior to the start of the appointment. So we would basically try to get funding approval for as many appointments as possible before the deadline, and then we would do a big mail merge. Then after the mail merge, we would need to do any necessary edits to the letter. For example, we would often need to tweak like research duties or fix something that was misspelled. So then now we're on the 5th row, and we would convert the letters to a PDF and email the student along with all those necessary attachments. So like similar to what you saw in the TA demo, we have a required handout for the GSR appointments, and GSRs also have their own description of duties. So we attach all of those, send the email, and then the students reply back with their acceptances. And then basically we would have to repeat rows 4 through 6 over and over again, as inevitably more GSR requests would trickle in before the start of the quarter. And then finally, the last step's processing payroll. We had the Google sheet that all the GSR requests are feeding into, but that only captures some of the information that we needed to process payroll. And it would also have like all the 265 requests. So it's a little hard to work off of. So the 4 of us would use that main spreadsheet, but also have an individual spreadsheet for tracking all the payroll information that we actually needed. So tracking payroll wasn't really well organized. In general, the process had like a lot of small tasks that took up a lot of our time. So now moving into our workflow with InfoReady, the first step hasn't really changed. We email our departments to ask them to reach out to their faculty to start submitting their GSR requests, but instead through InfoReady. The faculty submits their GSR request, and they are able to upload the description of duties directly into the request, kind of basically same thing that was that the TA process had. So now we are on row 3, and it comes to the academic HR team, and we are able to do a lot of the work up front now. So we make any necessary edits to the appointment letter content, set up all the routing for the accountant approval and for the students to receive their appointment letter. And now the academic HR team is also able to track payroll information in the form, which we later download into a report, which has been really helpful for us. Before, I think we kind of had a disjointed process where we were getting funding approval, then doing the letter, and then doing payroll. But all those steps are very much linked together. So by being able to do that like all at one time, it saves us a lot of time rather than basically having to look up the same information multiple times throughout the process. And then after we do all of our prep work for the appointment, then we are on row 4, and InfoReady generates the appointment letter based on the information that was entered by the faculty, and then incorporates any edits that we made. Then based on our routing that we have set up in the form, it goes to our accountants for funding approval, and once approved, then the letter automatically gets routed to the student to either accept or decline the appointment. We also have it built into the form, kind of basically same thing you saw on the TA demo, that all the required attachments, like the description of duties, are included. So we don't have to spend any time actually adding individual attachments to each request. So now we're on rows 6 and 7, and we have the same accept decline report for the GSRs. So InfoReady collects and tracks acceptances and also sends out those automatic email reminders. Then lastly, when it comes to payroll, or processing payroll, same as the TA process, we have a custom payroll report, and this includes all of the payroll information that my team entered when we were doing those edits and routing. So we download that report and paste it into a Google sheet for us to work on, and enter into our payroll system. And we have one Google sheet per person, which makes it a lot easier for us to work off of, but they're like all in one folder, so we can still go and reference each other's if needed. So as you can see, like in the red, in the last 2 columns, InfoReady takes care of a lot of the small tasks, and our payroll tracking is also much more organized. And it's not only like the graduate advisors and academic HR that really likes InfoReady. Our accountants have said that it's so much better having all the approvals out of their emails and in the system. And I've also heard from students that it's nice when like they want to go reference past orders, they can go into their assignments tab and look at all the appointment letters there. So I think that's everything. And so now, do you have any questions for us?
We do have some questions that have come in. And so one thing to address up front, someone asked whether the slides and the recording of the presentation are going to be shared. Yes, there will be an email going out tomorrow morning with the slides, the recording, and some other resources as well. And so we've got some other questions that were submitted too. So the first question, how are grad advisors able to determine the salary point? This has been something managed by the divisional AHR personnel. Thanks.
Yeah, so Our academic personnel office sends us a report of all the salary points for the students. And I take that and then I break it up by department and then put it into like a Google sheet. And then I link that Google sheet in the request form. So all the graduate advisors have to do is click on the link in the form itself, and then they just reference, the salary point and enter it in the form.
Thanks, Gianna. That seems straightforward.
Yeah, I think it's made it much easier that all they have to do is click a link and their salary point information right there.
Yeah, that's that it. One thing we find across every group we talk to is that it's so much easier to present information up front in InfoReady than in past more manual systems where people had to click through and then they get lost finding the information. And then inevitably, lots of questions come in via email or, maybe someone gives you a call or walks into your office, but it creates a lot of churn in the communication that slows down how these things are processed. So that's great to hear that it's easier for everyone. Here's another question. And maybe it'd be worthwhile to have the slide on screen with the workflow for some of these questions. The question is, who manages the steps after the letter is sent? Like following up with students who haven't accepted by the deadline or managing the required disclosure forms, etc.
It kind of depends on if it's a TA or the GSR process. All of the misconduct forms my team handles. And we do that kind of more in the onboarding process as we're doing new hires. And then the reminder emails go out to, or InfoReady sends the reminder emails for the students to accept or decline. But if for some reason they haven't, then the graduate advisors would email the TAs, or the academic HR would email the GSRs. But luckily, with the reminder emails that InfoReady automatically sends, that the reminder emails that we have to manually email out has drastically reduced.
Great.
And I would just also add that because the way that they have the grad advisors have that data view grid, and we have a special view grid that's just for student acceptances, it's really easy for them to quickly go in, and you can actually drill down and filter who hasn't accepted, and you'll right there you'll get a quick line by line about which one of your students haven't accepted.
Great. And so I'll elaborate on that a little bit. During the presentation where Gianna was walking through your InfoReady site, you mentioned that you had a few different views on the data grid there. And just for people listening, on that data grid, you can really empower yourself in being able to find information quickly because you can select which columns are displayed on the data grid, and you're able to choose from the fields that are in the form. You can turn so fields in the form can be columns on your grid, and then you can filter and sort, etc., to get the exact view you want, and then you save that. So you can always return to that whenever you want, or if there's a specific phase in the process you want to focus on at a given time. And that's you're taking full advantage of that. All right. Okay, so we have another question. Which errors were most common before you switched to InfoReady?
Which errors?
Yes.
Probably maybe wrong salary information, or for the GSRs, faculty would submit something, the Google form, we'd send out the letter, and then the student would email us being like, I don't work here, or I don't work in this building, I work in this building, or things like that. So then we'd have to revise the letter. Yeah, Patti, do you have any?
Sure, I wouldn't really call it an error. I would just call it a failure in the system before, because For TA appointments, it was all within the departments. So we were relying on staff to manage the TA appointment letters because those are documents that have to be recorded. And every department did it differently. Staff leaves. Gianna needs grievance comes up, and the first thing Gianna's going to do is, I need the appointment letter. And, that could sometimes be a struggle because due to staff turnover or it's because it's so manual and they had to take it out of their email and create a PDF and then store it. Sometimes that didn't happen, so it was in an email somewhere. So and then just again, when you do an error, you had to completely redo the appointment letter and completely email it out. And now the grad advisors just send me an email. We have a special email set up. I go in the back end, I make those changes, and then I just resend out the letter.
Wow, that's much easier. Fewer moving parts. That's great to hear. And so we've got some more questions. Here's one about keeping departments in the loop. So how is the department being kept in the loop about a GSR hire? I don't see where they are being informed, and they need to know GSR plans for TSI assignment planning.
So like the TA process has that data grid. Our graduate advisors have access to the GSR data grid. They're just like a viewer, and they can see as GSR requests come in, and we have reports set up for them so they can also kind of see the process. They can see if the students accepted or declined or not. So yeah, they have access to both data grids to view all the requests.
Thanks. And so I'll elaborate on that a little bit. In InfoReady, within an opportunity or workflow, there's you can assign viewers where you don't give them full admin privileges, but you're giving them access to view the data grid and potentially export certain reports that are only for them. And so the administrator managing that workflow is the one giving access to these viewers. And then that's another reason why having multiple views is also helpful, because then the viewers can just select the one that's most relevant to them at that time. Great. And so more questions. We've got lots of them. This is a setup question. How was the process of launching InfoReady for the first time with departments, students, etc.? What, if anything, would you change? So this is a setup and rollout question.
So we did trainings for both like the people that use the graduate student form or the TA form. We did trainings for like each group, which I think helped like before we launched, so that they knew what
And
how the workflow was going to go.
Even when we were creating it, we brought them into that process. So as Gianna and I were going through each step of the process, and sometimes it would be, should we do this or should we do this? I would send out polls to our grad advisors and say, what do you prefer? So we'd had all these polls going out, and then we had testers that as we got through like a section, we would say, okay, we want you to go in and test this and give us feedback. So before it was even launched, we had a long ramp up time. So they all got familiar with it, they got to play with it. And then we also produced a guide, a step-by-step guide. And that had, step one, and it would have screenshots, and step two. And then it provided a lot of more information too, that we could explain things like this is an explanation for this. So
Yeah, so that sounds like creating the guide was really helpful because it was more fragmented before. And then it's centralized now, so the guide was a key part as well, to get everyone on the same page.
Yeah, definitely. And we kind of have like a guide for like each role as well. So like the students have a guide, the faculty have a guide, the accountants have a guide, graduate advisors have a guide. So like everybody has a guide so they know what they're doing.
Right.
And
So that,
and also when we launched it, we had a canned email that we asked our grad advisors to send to their students so they knew about this change. So it wasn't like all of a sudden this email showed up in the graduate students' email box. They knew ahead of time that we were moving away from emails and PDFs. We're using the system. Look out for this email. It's not spam. You will go in and now accept your assignments within this system.
great. Sounds like you had laid some good groundwork with your communication, setting the expectation so no one was caught unaware. There's always people who don't pay attention to their email, but it really good communication plan and working with your stakeholders absolutely goes a long way to a successful rollout with uh, not much pushback.
Right. And with anything that InfoReady sets out, we have an email address for help. So there, it was really easy right away for them to go, I don't know what this is. And they could send an email to us. And Gianna and I monitor those on the back end. And we both made a really good effort to respond to those questions right away. That was priority, especially when we first rolled out.
So that a big priority was responsiveness so that people didn't get disenfranchised, for lack of a better term.
That's exactly right. So, and then there was a human behind it. It'd be like I'd be talking to a faculty member and they go, "Oh, it's Patti," right? And so there's a human behind it.
Oh, no, that's really helps a lot, let me tell you. I don't have to tell you, you're telling me. So another question. This is about uh, some of the attachments in the document. So, can the attachments be downloaded in bulk from InfoReady? For instance, if we had to store them somewhere else.
Um, like so the student can download them, or so there's like a few different attachments, right? And so the ones we deem like the kind of like required important ones, they can download it from that little PDF button when they're downloading the appointment letter. But like for example, like the leave handout, that's kind of more like optional information, so that's not included in the bundle. Um,
As far
but
as a bulk download, we haven't had a need for it. So that would be something
yeah.
that we'd reach out to Carlos and say, can we do a bulk download of all these PDFs? Because they're in the system, right? So there's got to be some way to
Yeah,
get them out. But
I know
we
like
haven't needed to do that.
from the data grid, I know you can like download, like you can check the boxes for like this each individual request, and I think you can download them and include the attachments in that. But Patti said, it hasn't had a need for that come up yet, so we haven't done that.
No. It's great that you haven't had the need. The feature is absolutely in the system where you can do a bulk download of all the application packets that come in, and you can choose which documents to include in the bulk upload as well. And you can choose to include the reviews that are part of the workflow as well. Um, and I got to tell you, if you've ever had to create application packets in the past, um, InfoReady allows you to export those very easily. It takes like 15 seconds. If in the past you've probably taken hours, really need it out of the system, it's like 15 seconds to do. But as Gianna and Patti said, they haven't found a need uh, to take any data out of this. Well, that data out of the system. You take the accounting
Yeah,
information out, but that data, the documents, they keep them in there.
yeah, we normally just kind of download uh like appointment letters individually. We haven't needed to do a bulk download.
Oh, this is a good one. This is, I got one about determining eligibility. So, how is student eligibility determined at UCSC? Is it verified before the request is sent to the academic HR personnel? Does InfoReady connect with the university's payroll system, or how does that connection occur? So, few different parts to this question. I'll let you run with it.
So we get email when a student's on leave from like their academic program, which wouldn't make them eligible for employment. So we're notified by email when that happens, and because the academic HR team doesn't necessarily, they're not, as involved on the academic side as like the graduate advisors would be. So we're notified that way. And then if that's the case, we can ensure not to process an appointment, a GSR appointment, or like rescind an appointment saying you're on academic leave, you're not eligible for this employment. Patti, do you have anything else to add on the graduate advisor side?
Well, the graduate advisors all know,
Yeah.
and it's their responsibility to know what their status is of the student. So that falls on the grad advisors. That's definitely their responsibility. And I don't know. I think I've rescinded one in the 2 years that we've used this, where a TA appointment letter went out, and then we found out the student was not eligible. I was able to rescind it and document it, explained it. We had language about the decision. So again, it happened one time. So the grad advisors know, and then Gianna's also going to catch it when she goes into UC Path and enters the payroll.
Yeah, so our departments have also a spreadsheet that's shared with our graduate division. And it will show like what their like support is for the quarter. And I feel like we reference that when we're processing GSR employment. So like before the letter even goes out. So if there's like nothing for that student, we're able to check in with the department of like, why is it the GSR not listed here? And then so like if they weren't eligible for some reason, I feel like that would come up then.
Right. That's true. So how our graduate students get funded, what fellowships, block money, etc. Every quarter that is tracked through the graduate division. So there is each department has a lovely Google sheet, and it's all fed in. So it's up-to-date data, and it's got their students listed, their status, etc. And then for each student, they have to go line by line and say they're getting a fellowship or they're getting a GSR and the tuition is covered by the GSR. And those spreadsheets Gianna has access to. So that's how the grad advisors know exactly, who's eligible and who's not, because our grad division maintains that database feed, because that then feeds into our academic information system in order for the students to receive the money if they have a fellowship, etc.
Well, thanks for those additional details on the workflow is really long, involving so many people.
Yeah.
A lot of touch points.
There's a lot of work we have yet to do. There's a lot of fixes, through the whole process. So this was like one piece of the pie that we could control, that the division could control. And so even though there's other touch points that, yes, it needs to be more centralized, et cetera, you take your wins. There's no way we were going to get the whole campus to completely change all their systems. So this is the starting point.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Right. So you have a successful starting point, right? Here's this foundation you're building.
Right.
And now you've got a whole bunch of consensus building internally
Right.
that you need to work on.
Right.
Um, here is a question about notifications. Would the student's grad advisor be automatically notified of the GSR hire?
So we had that set up initially, and our graduate advisors were like, this is too many emails. I can access the data grid and see the information that I need. So we removed them from the notification, but any graduate advisors outside of our division, so like if we hire a TA from social sciences, or sorry, a GSR from social sciences, that graduate advisor is notified via email.
Right.
they're just included in that like student routing step.
And so speaking of notifications, before a lot was happening over email, uh, how how much time were you spending on emails before, like email reminders?
I mean, it was a lot. I mean, just even emailing the initial email, like with the appointment letter and like attaching everything, that took up a lot of time. Um,
You
yeah.
can just imagine, I'll just give you an example. The chemistry grad advisor has 60 plus TA appointments every quarter. And it's one person. She's got 100 graduate students that she is responsible for. And so each quarter, she's got to do all these mail merges and send them out. And then she would have to keep track of and then go back and, she would filter out her emails and then go back to each one and say, you still haven't accepted, you still haven't accepted, you still, I mean, and that's why we said we counted up how many hours that we saved from all that manual time of them having to go back in and send individual emails back out. That was the big selling point for me that InfoReady took care of the email reminders.
Yeah. I mean, people don't always check their emails. And you don't know if someone saw your email or not. Yeah. Here's another one for you. This is a good one. I'm sure lots of people on the call, on the webinar, are wondering this. Uh, so the question is, did InfoReady set this up, or was UC Santa Cruz able to do this themselves?
It was both. It was a partnership. It was a partnership. This was something that Carlos would agree with that we really kind of pushed the boundaries of the system, I would say, with this one, because just of all the inner complexities with it. So it was actually a partnership with both of us and then someone at InfoReady that was our trainer, whatever you want to call it, onboarding person. Um, and then once we did it in two steps. We built the TA process first, and we rolled that out and tested it at first. And then we built the GSR from that because there's a lot of steps that are the same, and then it just got expanded. So we did a two process. We just didn't do both at one time. And
Yeah, I would really recommend not doing both at
right.
once. It
And
really helped doing it
right.
separately.
And to be honest, Gianna's just wicked smart with this type of stuff. I mean, I couldn't do it. So we just had the right person in the right role to get this built out that understood how databases work, et cetera.
Right. Yeah. I'll echo focusing on one, refining that, get it right, and then you're able to copy it and then make edits uh, that are appropriate for the other process you're running. So you said you did TA first and then GSR.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'll add, um, when we're getting set up, when a group is coming on board, we do training and some consulting work because you're learning a platform. You're trying to figure out how your previous process might work or how you might reimagine your previous process into doing it in InfoReady. And some are more complex than others. Some have more moving parts, some have more stakeholders. So it really does vary. Um,
And I'll just add that before we even went with InfoReady, we created those workflows. So we went to InfoReady and said, okay, here it is. This is a step-by-step process. How is your system going to handle that? So we were well aware of what we were getting into and what InfoReady was capable of doing. So that was a huge checklist. Okay, green light, let's go with it.
yeah. We even added a couple pieces of functionality to make it easier.
I know.
And so now this is much more replicable.
Right.
The additional
Right.
functionality.
I put together a wish list is what I did. And I categorized them and I said, gosh, if you could do these three things And then this is kind of medium, and this is just a nice thing if you could get it done. And InfoReady was extremely responsive because what we were asking for actually helped their whole platform. It helped everybody. Really be great if you could do this. And so there was, big picture, medium, and then just wish lists. And actually, they did the whole list. So
It was just smart to do. It was worthwhile to do the whole list.
right.
Yeah. And so you've got this foundation built. There's workflow is longer. There's a feature in the system called progress reports for follow-up reporting, measuring outcomes. Any plans on using progress reports in the future?
No, I don't think so.
No.
We haven't even delved into that. We need it. We have many more processes within the division that we need to get into InfoReady, and that's been where our focus and time is at. Gianna's just starting another with academic appointments. So when somebody wants to hire a postdoc or a scientist or a researcher, we're using forms that they fill out, and then it gets routed via email to get approvals, and then so the system that we were using to collect that information, it was Wufoo because we built it a while ago before pre-Google. I mean, and the campus just decided no longer to use Wufoo, so now Gianna is having to put that process into InfoReady. So our focus has been on all these other processes that we really want to get into InfoReady, but we never just have the time to do it. We've got a list.
No, that makes sense. Try to get as much as you can into the platform and then
Right,
build
to
it
come
out.
up for some air and take a
And
look
then
at
like
progress
refine
reports.
processes. Yeah.
We could just have one more person.
I say that all the time. Oh, just one more person on this team.
Somebody could just clone Gianna, then the world would be perfect.
So we only have time for a couple more questions. One question we have here is, how long does it take for one request to be processed?
I guess TAs are different than GSRs. But I mean, you just saw me do the demo for the TA. So like if you minus out all the talking, probably like a minute or two.
Yeah, the grad advisors it's amazing how quickly it is now. And the other feature also that we still haven't got set up yet, as far as we have to enter in the information on the schedule of classes. So what the class is, the title of the class, this is all required. Daytime, where the room is at. We are hoping InfoReady's got it ready. It's the campus that needs to trigger it, where our schedule of classes will get fed into InfoReady each quarter, and all the grad advisor has to know is what that course number is attached to it, and it automatically will fill out all that information. So that'll take one whole click, click, click step away. So, but they go through it pretty quick now.
Yeah, and then InfoReady implemented a copy feature. So like for our chemistry classes that there's like 10 TAs for the same lab, they can just click copy the previous lab one, and all they have to replace is like the student name and their email and any other details and that are directly related to the
Yeah, I
student, but
forgot
like all the
about
course
that.
information stays the same.
Yeah,
So
that was a
would be really
huge
quick.
win. That was a huge win for us.
Trying to save time wherever we can. Okay. And so last question here. What do you do? This one's for me. You're saying you mentioned that you got to come up for it. There's been huge time savings across the division. You're still in the middle of it, trying to come up for air. But with the time and effort you've saved, what other projects are you working on aside from adding more into workflows into InfoReady? Or what else can you work on now that you have the time savings?
That's hard for me because I keep on having to fill in for departments. So right now I'm filling in for covering for two departments. So um, if we can get the staffing stabilized, I'm gonna have a lot of time. So um, Gianna, how
Yeah,
about you and your group?
I feel like in addition to just like saving time, I feel like it's also made like our like day-to-day workflow easier because like whenever we did a mail merge, we would have like, like hours of work to do after that mail merge, of like editing, emailing, all of that. Whereas with InfoReady, we work on requests individually. So we can like work on them a few at a time, or we can set aside a time to work on a lot if we wanted to. So it's like since we do have other work that we have to do, we can like decide how much work we're going to do in InfoReady based on our other work now. It's not like the opposite way around where like life just became chaotic and we forgot all about our other work and just focused on GSRs. Now we just have just like a better balance.
And I would say the situation before was untenable, and that's why we kind of drew the line in the sand as staff and said, we gotta fix this. This is crazy making. So it just allows us not to have so much crazy in our job.
Yeah, I feel like it's just like you don't have all the catch up after we did the mail merge and stuff of like,
Hmm.
oh, we forgot all about our other work. Now we can go back and do this. Now it's like we can balance both at the same time and not have this huge catch up.
That's great. Great to hear. I'm sure you and your colleagues like having the balance and less insanity.
Yeah. There's still a lot of insanity out there, but we little by little we're chipping away at it.
If I want insanity, I'll just go home and play with the kids.
Yeah, there you go. I'll play
Um,
with my dogs.
well, with that, we're coming to the top of the hour. We have I want to thank Gianna and Patti for sharing their story and how they use InfoReady here. I mentioned that we are going to send an email tomorrow with the recording and the slides. Um, if anyone wants to revisit that. We also have upcoming webinars. In November, we've got a couple. One is a training webinar focused on transitioning from another system to InfoReady. So there'll be tips and tricks on how to do that. And that same week, I'm pulling double duty that week. We've got a peer spotlight with Rice University where they'll be sharing how they manage faculty awards. And uh, and we're really looking forward to that. As always, we have training webinars every month. If you want to take a look at the full schedule, there's a link to their events calendar there at the bottom. It's in the slide. You'll receive the slide. And if you want to reach out and with any questions, my colleague Max Dinerman, who's the director of sales, can answer questions. If you're an existing InfoReady user, feel free to contact me, or if there's any technical questions, reach out to the support team. I want to thank everyone for attending today. And again, special thanks to Patti and Gianna for sharing their story. Have a great day, everyone. Appreciate your time.